Hey guys, it's your boy Thane here with New American Aesthetic 360. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about my first camera, the Samsung Gear 360. I first got this camera a couple of years back, and when I got this camera, I really would hardly say I was a photographer. I was a phone photographer at best, and still someone, definitely not anybody that had any kind of understanding of composition or how to get a proper exposure in a camera. I knew how to point and I knew how to shoot, and I knew how to edit a little bit in Google Snapseed or the native Instagram editing suite. But other than that, I didn't know anything. But I had gotten the little Samsung stick your phone in VR headset, and it just blew my mind. And when I found out that Samsung had a camera that was set up for this kind of reality, this kind of technology, I was like, I have to get one. Would literally just go on these hour-long walks and try to put this thing wherever I could, like any different angle, all crazy stuff. 'Cause, over the years, I have whittled my process down, whittled it down to what it is today, and kind of some own internal norms that I've created within my own work. But it all started here. It all started with this little Pokeball, taking it around, and just seeing what I could get it to capture for me. It's a automatic camera, which is great too when you're first starting out. A lot of 360 cameras I find are like full auto cameras, kind of like GoPros, where the variables you get to mess with are very minimal, and which is a good thing when you're learning, because you don't need to have that much freedom, to be honest. It's just trying to get you a proper exposure, kind of like throwing it into auto on whatever DSLR mirrorless you may have, or your phone. It's just trying to get a proper exposure, and it figures it can do that better, if it can just make all the choices instead of you, which is great. The only things you really have control over, I think you had an ISO, a couple settings to play with. You definitely had some added or minus exposure that you could add, and I remember doing that a lot with this camera, throwing the exposure pretty down dark, just to get the exposing of the skies, which is one part I really love about 360 photography, is how you capture the skies and stuff. So I remember prioritizing, not knowing anything about HDR processing or anything. I mean, it just kind of figured, like, if I dialed down, I could see the sky more, and that's what I cared about. And you'll see, a lot of these pictures that I took with the skies, the exposure is for the sky, the dark. That's why it's so, the ground is so dark, is because I was throwing that exposure compensation way down in the minus, not knowing really anything other than the practical effect. And I kind of think of 360 photography, at least in the stage it is right now, technologically speaking, it could be kind of like film photography, because every time I went out, I had no idea what I was going to capture. I had to just kind of keep a mental note of how I was placing it, what angles, what proximities and stuff. I had to keep that kind of just like a mental log in my head of that going on, because I had no idea until I got back, stitched them up, and got them into an editing suite, what they even really were going to look like, let alone what they were going to look like when I put them through the Little Planet process. So in that case, I do find 360 photography, I mean, the higher end cameras, and kind of trickling down to the lower end as technology progresses, are having those screens for that reference. But I don't know, part of me, even with my Fusion today, doesn't have a screen, and I kind of like it that way. I don't know, it keeps me attentive and intentional with what I'm doing, because that's going to be what's my reference going back. I'm not going to be able to just snap something, look, and just be like, oh, that's not right. No, I've got to be very measured and very tactful in everything I do. Well, I hope you guys liked what I had to say today about the Samsung Gear 360. Let me know your take in the comments. Shout out. Let's start a discussion. I love this camera for what it was in my 360 journey, and how it set me up for everything I'm able to do, and all the stuff we were going to continue to talk about all had its root in this first camera really opening this world up to me in a very enjoyable way.